We going ancient, tribal, the ancient Greek dithyramb. We're going back to the Mediterranean. Episode 67. Ultimate Pill Podcast.
I gotta go climb that mountain, boy.
What's that do to you?
It's one of those examples in life that I can't explain it.
Yeah. It's different.
I think the context helped too. So
Yeah.
I'll let you describe what the context of this
Yeah.
really is and how they used it. But it did really kind of pull forth the striving.
Yeah. It was like a march.
It was like a, I don't know. I just showed, to me, it's like the importance of like the combination of things. Like the combination of that just
Yeah.
brings something out of you.
You had voice, drums, flutes. The voice in there was very rhythmic.
And it was a very like striving forward, moving
Yeah.
forward
Yeah.
imagery of
Yeah.
like, you know, and how you described they would use that as they were reciting the Iliad and so forth. I literally started kind of going in my head, Chris Perez stride forward and willed his way to a point
dude,
to where
it's like the foundation for a story, like an epic.
man, dude, I just got a interesting idea that came on this show, but let's talk about it offline because we'll pick it apart. But like how helpful, that's like I think that's an exercise of sorts to where someone who's going through a tough time, like you play that for them and just have them write.
Yeah, tell their story.
Tell your story in a way that makes you feel heroic. Mm-hmm. And then you just play that.
Yeah.
And then
that'd be cool. And then, and then eventually if they're confident enough, have them to recite it, you know, at least maybe just to you, but
like
recite it out loud, you know, to the beat, because that's something that is a huge part of like the poems of ancient Greece and even their plays. It was a constant, it had to have this rhythmic, the dithyramb was a rhythmic beat that was being played behind the words. And it's like this, we're going on an adventure, you know. There's something to do with the music. The music's key. The music's key. And Nietzsche said that in The Birth of Tragedy. The music is,
well, yeah, energy.
It does something in you.
Yeah, energy, frequency, vibration. Tesla figured that out.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's the frequency, it's the vibration that's coming across the combination of these sounds that are coming from the voice of God.
Yes.
Episode 67.
Let's go. We took it back to the Mediterranean. You know, we talked a lot about Heraclitus in part 1. So
Dang.
I was trying to go back to ancient Greece, ancient Athens. He was an Ionian, so he was an Athenian.
What's an Ionian? What's that?
So I was actually going to tell you. So this is something I've learned recently. People look at ancient Greeks or just Greeks in general. It's like, oh, it's just one people. But there was actually multiple ethnic groups. So the Ionians were one, and that's who the Athenians were. And then you have the Danans or the Dananites, and those were like the Spartans. And there's actually a bunch of others, but you actually have in Greece, in the Peloponnesian Peninsula, a bunch of different ethnic groups, and that's why the Peloponnesian War happened. I didn't know this, but when Spartan and Athens went to war, it wasn't because of they were vying. Well, I mean, they were vying for like power over Greece in general, but it was also because there was different ethnic groups that looked very similar. Oh. But like the Danans were like more blonde. They had actually, so like people were like, oh, Achilles wasn't blonde. Yeah, he was. He's described as having like this golden hair. Color was a little different to them, but like Menelaus, who's a Spartan, he's described as being fair haired. So it's either like really blonde or red.
Interesting.
So yeah, you had these different ethnic groups in ancient Greece.
Interesting.
The Ionians typically were Athenians or the surrounding city-states around Athens.
So even the Greeks were culturally unaware like us.
Yeah, very much. And culturally diverse.
Culturally diverse.
And the Athenians were kind of the outward-facing face of Greece. They were the ones that were traveling the world. So the Jewish word for Greek was something close to Ionian. I think in Asia, I forget what other country, but they called them the Iones or something.
Interesting.
They were kind of the outward-facing face.
Well, that checks out because, I'm Hispanic and Cuban descent, both parents born and raised in Cuba. I don't like it when I'm called a different Hispanic heritage. And I shouldn't say I don't like it. It's a slight. It's that subtle, it's that unconscious thing comes out of, that's not me. Like, I'm not Puerto Rican.
Oh, yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm Cuban.
I'm Cuban.
Right. Yeah.
So cultural awareness, multicultural awareness, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well,
cultural competency. If we want to talk random little business idea, like if you want to capitalize in the business world where everyone's going into, man, you got to be culturally competent, man. You got to know how different you got the macro culture, you got to know the micro cultures.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah.
And squeeze your way into one of those micro cultures.
Yeah, it's good. When that comes
Wiggle
back,
your way in there.
Yeah.
Let me in here. I got something I could help you with.
Yeah. Well, and like
you got a problem, I got a solution.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it comes back to kin too. Like kin were in culture groups and communities and cultures.
Kin, got you.
Yeah, that normally started with your kin. So like even in South America, like Guatemalans and Hondurans, and they don't really mess with straight up Mexicans from Mexico. I learned that when I did my film. I was like, a lot of the Mexicans cartels will target Guatemalans or Hondurans, but on the surface they all look the same.
Yeah.
They all look physically on surface level like South Americans.
Yeah.
But they're not. Even Mayans and Aztecs were different.
Yeah.
Olmecs who were in the Amazon. Olmecs, Mayans, and Aztecs were a part of those ancient cultures. But they all look different. The Olmecs actually have, if you look at their statues, look a little bit African.
Yeah.
They look like they come from Africa.
Yeah, your brain's wired different. Yeah, culture by culture.
Yeah. And the utility of that is like, again, going back to what nature's wanting and striving for in this higher order form, we should actually be strong in how differentiated our forms are. Like that's actually a strength. It's like, I don't know, like every person has their place, and it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's beautiful how nature can like
super. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
They actually say, the cure to ignorance is curiosity, man.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I took us back to the Mediterranean for Heraclitus.
I was on a journey.
67. Yeah, man.
I was on a journey,
the Dithyram.
I like that, dude. I like that. To me, that was a really, I don't know if you heard that, go back and now kind of the context of it. Like, see, I don't know, run yourself maybe through that exercise that I was just talking about. Like, play that initial 3 minutes and just write a heroic story that is you moving forward while listening to that. I'm so curious. I feel like there's utility in that, man.
It might be. We should try it ourselves.
That's super. That's a very synthetic creativity right there at its best. That is the combination of multiple ideas to find one new, bigger idea.
Yeah, I like it.
That's literally taking what you're trying to do and then taking what I'm trying to do and putting it together.
Yeah,
which is what we do on this show. What's up, man?
What's up? No, that's good. I think the rhythm and blues of life, the rhythm of life. It's like, I think there's something there.
The rhythm of life. There you go.
Like there's something there. Like even linguistically, it's hard because English, which is one of the most known around the globe, and it's great for that utility, is not the most. It's kind of clunky. You've talked to foreigners who have to learn English. They're like, man, English is hard to learn because of the double meanings and triple meanings of some words and all the stuff. But the ancient Greek was harmonic. It had a rhythm, and you hear it I've heard it spoken. It's crazy. It's like do, and there's a rhythm to it. And
that's funny you say that. When I was that essay that I sent you yesterday that I read about Heraclitus.
Yeah.
At one point he was talking about some of his fragments now that you can't tell where they begin or end, and it kind of throws some people off.
Yeah.
That it was actually the rhythm of the wording.
Yeah.
Had something to do with it.
Yeah. So
like these ancient philosophers were like.
Oh, it's poetics at its best.
Yeah,
like they weren't just philosophers.
It's
they were
tapping
poets.
in.
Yes, and so I actually know someone who knows ancient Greek. They said when you read Heraclitus in the Greek, it is very Homeric, and Homer was a poet. So you have a philosopher in Heraclitus who's writing like a poet. So you got to imagine that, like these things, and they probably were little aphorisms, like how we have the fragments and just these little rhythmic. It's almost like the verse of a song. It's like, here's a little verse of a song, but it's like got the deepest philosophical meaning ever. And people, the way they would ponder them and memorize them, you know. And so that's how you learned, is you would read Heraclitus' fragments. You know, that book's actually lost now. We don't. His book was called On Nature. That's why we only have his fragments. What's crazy is Heraclitus is famous, and we only have like, we don't even know the percent, but like we know there was a book he wrote called On Nature, or the Nature.
Yeah.
And all we have left of it is fragments. It's gone. I hope someday we find it. Maybe we can find it.
Oh man, let's look for
Greece.
Yeah, we just got to go into our minds.
Yeah. It's good.
Hey, that's Epictetus too, man. Epictetus, all his writings come from his students.
Yeah.
Socrates and Plato was Socrates' dictionary.
Yep. He wrote Socrates stuff. So, yeah, it's weird. They weren't.
All rivers flow differently, but come from the same source. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I don't know why I just thought about that.
Because Heraclitus says you can't step in the same river twice.
I mean, you could, but I mean, we're talking about here, like people who are known in history for these magnificent ideas are just kind of pulling from what they learned from the previous. And what I'm getting at, but I don't know, man. Let's get closer to the one source that is kind of like spider webbing out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that.
Dissolving out.
I think that source for me, and from a Nietzschean standpoint, is nature, like nature and life itself. And that's what he would say. And that's what I've been working through with that flame of ion stuff. And I think fire's tied into that. So what I was going to tell you was, so the Scythians were an ancient culture, and Heraclitus writes about them a lot in his histories. But the Scythians were this Proto-Indo-European culture, which is one of the first, most advanced cultures we have. These were the herd charioteers that were coming out of the Caucasus steppes and conquering most of the known land. There's two groups that separated. One went east and one went west. In the east, that they went to India, and that's where we get the Vedic religion. So all of Hinduism is Vedic and it is Indo-European. All of it, they're gods. And then the other ones went west and kind of became the Proto-Indo-Europeans, and then filtered down into the Levant and became the Scythians and Hittite and Iranians. They're all Proto-Indo-European. But the Scythians, so the reason why I say that is because the Scythians, we can look at their religion and how it was set up and kind of derive an idea of what these peoples believed. And at the top of their hierarchy, bro, is this ever-burning fire. It's actually a female, but they have this goddess that's at the top of their hierarchy, and she's this burning fire. And so I keep finding these things and learning things. It's like it comes back to fire. And Heraclitus was so big on fire. That's what he thought. Yeah. You know, there's so many good fragments of his that are about fire and the burning of fire. And so
I'll share. I was sitting out back yesterday, and I was listening to fragments and went to the chapter on fire and know what fire means to you. And I understood it, but I was like, not there yet. So I literally just kept kind of just letting go, like, what does this fire thing mean? And then at one point he says something about a vapor dissolves and becomes the material or something like that. And I was like, oh man, like I got this image of a fire burning powerfully, and what's coming off of it dissolves, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Like it's like a vapor, dude, of coming from somewhere outward.
Yes, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like it's like a shining forth from here to out.
Yes.
And that shining forth is determined by what you choose to live like.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And the life you choose.
Yeah.
Like for me, again, there's two paths of life. There's one that kind of goes down and one that goes up, that's ascending. And
is your flame dying out, or is it burning brighter as your life progresses? Because it certainly could burn to the bitter end.
Yes.
Bitter end.
Well, let's.
What you got? Send it.
So, oh God, this is a good one.
Send it, man. Just say it.
This one I've been pondering. I forget which number this is. How? He says, how, from a fire that never sinks or sets, would you escape?
Okay, I heard that one on the way, and I like the idea of sets. So the word that meant the most to me in that one was sets. Nothing never sets. Like there's no set, like there's no fixed.
Yeah, because later.
There's no fixed position. Everything is static.
Yeah.
Constant change.
Yes.
Constant unmanifest to manifest.
And he talks about too how every day is new.
Oh, I like that one too.
And so, like, okay, so, but that one for me is he's asking you, hey, if you were stuck in a room with a fire that never stopped and never set, how would you escape? And the answer is you don't. You burn. But don't think of that as negative. Again, don't
think the content of it. Again, right. Look at the message behind. Look at the meaning behind the message.
It gets me all jacked up because it's like you would light up. You would burn. Yeah. And maybe the stuff in you that needs to be burned away would burn away and you'd be formed into something new. Or like a ore, a metal ore in the fire, it becomes this sword, or it becomes what it was meant to be. A metal burned in the fire, it reforged. You become forged. Okay. You become crisp and hard, and you come into what you're supposed to be, your mold. Okay. I don't know. I mean, it's like,
I just got a different concept for fire now, and I think remember what fire does do for us is it lets us see. Yeah. It gives us sight. It gives us vision. It gives us the ability to experience. Otherwise, we're in darkness, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I went back to, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but I went back to the one where he talks about. Those who walk around awake are one, and those who walk around sleeping are okay. And yeah, those who walk around awake are one, and those who walk around sleeping are in their private world. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at with that is this fire thing, this opening up, this strong force thing, it also opens you up to potentially seeing a whole bunch of different opportunities right in front of your face.
That's good.
But your attention isn't attuned because you can't see it. But a fire lit up lets you see. Allegory of the caves, man. Yeah, there was a fire, but we were all paying attention to the shadows on the wall, dude.
Exactly. Yep.
All you had to do was look outside and say, oh, what's over there? Yeah. And I'm going to be the one to go look. Yeah. And then what I find through experience, I'm going to come back and share. Yep. And hopefully it helps.
Yep. Yep.
Deeper understanding of the human experience, man.
Yep. Yep. I love it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's why that's good. I mean, there's so many.
Flame is understanding too. Flame is power, but flame is also understanding.
Yeah. It's
awareness.
It's a revealing. It's an awareness. Yeah. Like you said, it's life giving and life taking. So it's the energy behind nature that's destructive, but also growing. It's like the cyclical.
It expands and retreats. He says at certain points.
Yes. Yeah. It flickers. So it's mesmerizing. It draws you in. But it can also
it does. Yes.
Draw you out.
Do not campfires do that to everyone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're hanging out by a campfire, two things are happening. A, great conversation. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, you put yourself in a condition where you're around people who have good conversations around a campfire, or people are just staring.
Yeah. They're lost in meditative thought. So I think fire can push you into the inner world too.
Yeah.
When you stare at it, it's like, man, there's just so many. That's my thing, is this flame of ion concept, because when you combine it with time, and what Heraclitus says is he says time, ion, is a child at play. So imagine a child who builds these big sandcastles and then destroys them for the fun of it, and then let's build it again. And it's like that same energy is behind nature. And he says something too that I think is so profound. He basically says humans have to look at that energy, and because we're so limited, we designate good and evil based on that energy. But there is no good and evil beyond that. Yeah. And that's essentially what Nietzsche was trying to get to. He was so heavily influenced by Heraclitus. In his Beyond Good and Evil, he's trying to say we get stuck up in these morals senses of divisions, and to change that, you have to go outside of it. Yes. And it goes back to what you were saying about different cultures. You talked about when you finally traveled and went around the world, you saw, wait a minute, there's different concepts to besides just the Western way of living. Mm-hmm. And that's my point with moralities too. In Nietzsche's, he's like, to the Persians, it was to shoot the bow straight and ride the horse well and speak the truth. To the Jews of Israel, it was honor thy father and mother and don't kill. Yeah. So you have these different, what Nietzsche calls tables of virtues all around the world, depending on the cultures. And to decide what's best of those, you have to go beyond good and evil. And in the same way, Heraclitus is saying hey, in your limited view as a human, you designate good and evil, but this energy outside us and above us and behind us and pushing us in nature, it's amoral. It isn't, it's a child at play.
It's impersonal.
Yeah.
It's impersonal.
Yeah, and that's what Jung was saying about God in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Which he related back to nature.
Yeah.
It's like this amoral, I don't know. So,
I mean, I like that. I like that.
I bring that up to say, like, let that designate, or I guess it kind of gives you some breathing room in the deciding the virtues and the values of your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be this pre-prescribed one way.
No, for sure.
So
I was literally just sitting here thinking, man, in episode 6, 7, we talk about self-inquiry and self-reflection and self-observation and self-development so much. Like, how do you go within? And I think you just literally hit it.
Cool.
It's like you just choose to come up with your own choices rather than just working through what A, the culture tells you what to do, or B, what has happened in the past, and you're just bringing the same thing forward. Like, no, you're choosing to meet this with a new flame, a new awareness, a new idea of evolution, which in turn will create a different reality.
Nietzsche says in Zarathustra, he says, a lot of the reason why he's, and this is my point to what you just said, is so huge, and you said the new flame, but I wanted to add an asterisk to that or a footnote and say, if you choose to do that, be prepared to be called the villain, because people are stuck in their moral delineations. But Nietzsche says in Zarathustra, he's recounting on why he's not being accepted, and he says, well, I went up to the mountain with my ashes and made a new flame for myself. He says that. So he took his ashes. So imagine this imagery. It's like you've been cremated. The old you has been cremated. Take those ashes to the mountain, spread them out, and you rekindle a new flame for yourself.
Oh, that's great, man.
But he's saying that in response to why he's not being accepted by the common mass of people.
Yeah.
So, and that was what Nietzsche was saying, Nietzsche was like, man, to get beyond good and evil, it's the people that are cretinous and villainous and as coined by modernity or as coined by modern common accepted like cultural morality.
Yeah.
So
interesting, man.
Yeah.
One I wanted to add before that may slip away from us is Buddha said that there's 1,000 ways to describe one God. Mm-hmm. So how you were describing morality meant this to them, this to them, this to them.
Yeah. That's good.
You got to understand the culture aspect behind things, man.
Yeah.
And what that beyond means to them.
Right.
And hopefully just the idea of what is beyond is being entertained and attuned.
Yes.
That is,
yes.
In my opinion, in this day and age, like that needs to be the kind of like driving force for life itself for you, because otherwise it's so confusing, man.
Right. And
it's so confusing.
And we're not trying to be abstract. I think this is quite literally the answer to all this is what is that driving force or that beyond? It is life. It is nature.
Yeah.
It is in Heraclitus, that's fire.
Yeah.
It's this energy, it's this life force that is a striving and wants to live. Mm-hmm. You know, and when I talk to you about my breakthroughs, what I did personally with, you know, content and context and character equals fate, was I realized I had this desire to live these certain other lives, and I would find these proxies to live those lives instead of living it. And I wonder how much of us do that, where we're, you know, if we could voice it innately, our desire is to live a certain life or to live a life to its fullest, but then we realize we can't do that way or be that person. And so we have these proxies. My proxy a lot of times was imagination, and it was imagination through filmmaking. I was going to go tell these stories and live this life as an actor, or live this life in a movie as a movie maker.
Right.
But it was a proxy. What at the bottom was a desire to live that life. Yeah. And so that gets us into content and context and how we can live.
Well, I think a way to potentially get close to that idea is where's the intention coming from? Like a self-reflective question to ask yourself, like if you're confused on where you're going or why things are happening the way they are, where's the intention coming from? Mm-hmm. Like, is the intention coming from because I want to be this famous filmmaker? But as you start peeling the layers back, oh man, the intention's not where it needs to be.
Right.
And when you make that intention one thing, i.e. support life, i.e. develop human consciousness, i.e. live life affirming, like that intention can drive so many different creative experiences for yourself.
That's what effed me up, man.
Intention, I think, man, is a place to start.
And that's what effed me up. was this year. It's like everything was. I say this in a positive way. Everything was ruined for me, intellectually and philosophically, in that light, because I realized. Again, it's Nietzsche, bro, and I'm not a Nietzsche stan, but he, and I don't even like. I went to Barnes and Noble the other day. I love going to Barnes and Noble. Just look at the books and find so many good
beautiful.
books.
They're beautiful. Yeah.
Very nice looking, smell good. People think that's weird, but I think new books smell good.
I think they do
then you
too.
got the smell of coffee because the Starbucks is in there. But I'm looking around and like I haven't been in a while, so I'm like, oh man, I found like I was pulling out like 8 or 9 books. I was like, dude, this sounds awesome. And then I'm like thinking, and I'm like, I just don't want to read anything other than Nietzsche. Like he has ruined, he's such a joy for me. At first he wasn't. At first you read him, you're like, okay, I don't like this. This guy's challenging. He's completely like antithetical to everything. Everything you think. And then you keep reading him and you're like, oh, this is such a joy. And it's honestly ruined almost everything else that I want to read, except for like the classics, like because I still find that same energy, and I'm like rereading the Odyssey now, so except for like classic literature and mythology, he's ruined everything, bro. I almost can't read anything contemporary because of him. But I say this in a good way because in back to my life and what you just said about figuring out the intention, when I finally understood him and what he was talking about with this life affirmation and this life ascension and this support of life, which we've talked about, but I didn't understand it in this light. It completely took away my desire. I think I attribute it to that. My desire to want to be making movies and directing. I realized, wait a minute, that's not really what I wanted to do for those reasons. I just thought that was, I thought I had kind of subconsciously believed that was the only answer, but it wasn't. And it was, so it was like he stripped away all these like little, I don't know if they were masks or like just things I was draping over my eyes, like veils. And Nietzsche just has this way. He says he philosophizes with a hammer, and he does. He's like going to hit you in the face. And it's like, take all that away. All right, what is there? And it's like you get back to basics and you realize, okay, now, and at first that wasn't comfortable. Like I told you, I've been kind of in a rut, but because it's like, okay, well, I know I want to act, but I don't know where to go. And I finally figured that out, again, due to a lot of help of him. But anyway.
Yeah, he broke down the mental block for you, man. Like literally, I saw like a wall with his hammer, like you were saying. He just broke it down, man. No, and he's saying everything that you needed to hear, just you hadn't heard it yet, right? Kind of something along those lines.
Yes, and in a new light and a new understanding. Because
it resonates with you. You don't. To me, it's not anymore about like what this is. It's how it affects me.
That's good. Yeah,
because I can't. It's explaining intersubjective experience can only be done through like describing the context that you were in that time and how you experienced it. Like that's the only way. Like you can't reason it. You can't reason some of these things we're talking about. Like you've got to be able to go beyond a little bit and be curious and expand yourself and open up to the experience of all of this, man. And he just kind of wiped your lenses a little bit. I'm happening. I'm happening. I am happening.
You are happening.
So are you. So are you. And so are you. But I will say you were feeling some dissonance, I bet, man. Because you've had this belief forever, but all of a sudden someone else is giving you a different belief, and you're like, no, my identity is unconsciously being challenged. And your brain was literally like, when I think of dissonance, it's like just a pounding. But maybe that's why they call him the hammer, man, because he creates dissonance, and then eventually
you hammer out that diamond from that core or whatever. But
I saw the statue in the stone and began to chip.
Michelangelo. Well, I'm so glad you brought up this kind of this idea, this hammering, this I call it the agon, and I actually wanted to bring this up to you. That's the Greek word for like competition, and it's more than that though. And this is something I think may be lacking in our day-to-day lives, and I think for most people, and this is a lot of the inspiration for me wanting to start these camps, and then eventually what would lead to a school. And I think I might call it the agon. But the agon was to the Greeks everything. Everything had to be won by competition. Every aspect of life was a competition. And in the same Heraclitian philosophy, Heraclitus sees all of these energies and these opposites, right? Up and down and back and forward. They are colliding and competing. And in the competition of these opposites, there creates this energy of life. And the Greeks fundamentally understood this in their body, whether they knew it vocally or philosophically. They lived it, and they understood it in that way, because everything had to be won through competition. And to the extent, get this is huge. And Nietzsche talks about this in an essay called Homer's Contest. He says a lot of the Greeks would exile the winner of the contest. So hear me out on this. And I think this is beautiful. So like they saw all of life as a competition, the agon, and whoever was the best at that, if someone like eventually strove and became the best, they said, okay, congrats, bro. We celebrate you, but you got to go. You got to get out of town, because when someone reaches the best, everybody else will stop competing. He already reached it. And so in that way, they were like, you got to get out so the competition remains, so that there still can be a striving for the winner. And I think that is so deep and profound, and how that relates to our lives.
At the individual level.
Yes.
Put that which has, humility comes in, right? Put that which you have achieved behind and continue striving forward.
Like the competition's not over. Oh, man. So in a way, and I come back to people hate on him, but Conor McGregor made a good quote. He said, in a lot of ways, a win can be just as devastating as a loss.
Yeah.
And I think this is the philosophy behind that, where it's like and I think that's what's ruined his career, is he's made so much money, he got so high. I don't know if that guy will ever fight again, honestly. And I don't, and there's a part of me that understands him, because it's like, well, I get why you have a kid now, you have multiple kids, you have this huge franchise you've kind of built. Yeah. I kind of understand the reasoning behind it, because reasoning is its own thing. Why would you risk your life? You could die in there. Yeah. And you've already won. You won 2 belts in 2 different weight divisions. Yeah. You did something that no one else had done. Yeah. But that's the point the Greeks were making, was like, bro, you got to go, because you did that. Because you know what I'm saying? Like now the competition has to keep going, and we have to keep competing.
I like that.
With ourselves.
Let me bring in Tim Grover, the author of
Love Grover.
Relentless.
So good. That's
Kobe
good
Bryant's trainer, mental trainer.
Michael Jordan's as well.
Michael Jordan, Dwayne. LeBron at the beginning.
Yeah.
When he was hanging out with Dwayne in Miami, him and Bosch. Oh, he tells a story about what Dwayne was going through to stay relevant. Interesting stuff. But he's got cooler, closer, cleaner.
Yeah.
Cooler's just there. Super simple. It's on YouTube, Relentless, great book. Closer, I'll take the shot if it's there. Cleaner acts on intuition and just keeps being relentless, moving forward. Gotta contend. Gotta contend. Gotta contend. Gotta keep going. Gotta keep going. I'm the cleaner is the one that shows up. And even if the shot isn't there and it has to be taken, they take it.
Yeah, they find a way to make it.
They find a way to make it happen. They don't see problems. They see opportunities to find new solutions to previous problems. Because once I find a solution for that ain't even a problem no more. And if we go back to 66, that's expanding the system.
Yep.
Rather than slamming against that problem over and over, try to find something like what happened with Anthony and Nietzsche. Find something to break the wall down to where you could, oh my gosh, finally, geez.
Yeah.
Have I really been butting up against that same wall for 16 years?
Yeah. Yep. That's the agon, bro. That's the competition.
Be a cleaner, man.
The competitor, yeah.
Cleaner shows up, man.
Dude, I love that.
Cleans up stuff,
I love that.
man.
And that is the agon. And I've thought very much about how we can adapt that and adopt that in our lives every day, to look at this whole life as the arena. I mean, I've been blessed in my career, to do the chances to go to places that I went to. And I think back to my second career start in college was at Georgia, when they were number 11 in the nation.
Yeah, I remember this story.
And I will always remember walking into that stadium, bro, and the way it's designed and built. And there was already, we got there early, right? You get there, 2 or 3 hours before the game, but there's already people in the stands. And you walk in and you're like, I felt like I was in the Colosseum of Rome, about to fight for gladiatorial combat. And it's like that feeling. Oh, man. I'll always remember that. But that feeling is impactful, and that is the agon. It's like you are about to fight to the death, and you're either going to win or you're going to lose. And there's no getting out of here. Like, lock the gates, you're in. And you're in the arena, the man in the arena, Is that Teddy Roosevelt?
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt.
So there's something to that concept of adapting that to our lives daily. adopting the agon of Greece.
Can I challenge you? And I love the word competition. It's good. It's good. Brings the best out of us when it has a good meaning to it.
Yes.
This means challenge and growth for me. But I also love the idea of contending.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, because like if you're in competition with life, be careful, because then you may start slipping into an egoic state of me versus you. And that's not life supportive. That's life denying.
Yeah.
Because now out there is different than you, and you're completely going against what everything Anthony's talking about in Heraclitus and all these different things was the unity of things and the oneness of things. So what you got to view is out there's asking something of you. You must contend with it.
Yes.
And if you want to get scientific about this, like you're in contention with entropy, man.
Yeah.
All order divulges back to chaos. And thus a new order must be made from that new chaos, which in turn is evolution and creation.
I love that.
Contention, man. It's like I'm contending with this moment of boredom. Contending with this, I'm so bored, I need to do something. What can I do to contend correctly?
Yeah.
Let go. What are you attached to, man, that you want to do so bad? Where's this fear of being alone coming from? That's like contending with yourself, man.
Yeah.
Talk to me, man. Tell me what you need from me. Share one practical, real quick meditation, and I'm going to let you close it out.
Okay.
This idea of, I know, right? We have so much fun. Part 2 of, we're summertime recording. You got a baby on the way. I'm going on vacation. Like, just to give you guys some context of these shows, like we're recording, we're going hard. We're going for hours, and we're making sure that we're being consistent and loyal to the goals that we set before. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. Shorter episodes, but I want to share a real easy, I think practical, because I am getting much more comfortable helping people understand that the way their body feels really does influence their mental and emotional state. So could be done eyes closed right before you go to sleep, however you want to do it. But if the answer you're looking for is external, okay, I want this meditation to be, first take those couple mindful breaths in, right? Mindful breath out. Feel the breath kind of going into your body. Put yourself in a relaxed state. Let things kind of go back to their natural state of being and allowing life to just come forth from you. And once you get kind of comfortable, as you start breathing in, start seeing the air enter the space right between your eyebrows. And that's actually where the air is coming in. And it's going to come in there. You breath in. And then when you breathe out, same area. Do that over until you kind of start feeling it. It's almost like it starts tingling. You start activating that pineal gland. It starts taking you to a more non-linear experience of life. And once you get in that comfortable space, without expecting an answer, just simply say, where is what I'm looking for? And then you just sit with that. And it may not come the first time, second, third, fourth, or it may just give you something toward later on when you're doing something. Oh, there it is. Where is what I'm looking for at? Okay, if that's out there. If you're struggling emotionally, if you're struggling with something of yourself, okay, same process, use the heart though. Use the heart. So if it's perceptual, okay, do that exercise. Calm yourself down, put yourself in a good space, and then see the breath going through the brow, between the brows, out the brow. If it's something of yourself, if you're struggling with something emotionally, things just, how you feel about things aren't where they need to be, run that same process. Use your heart as you get the breathing going. You say, where is what I'm looking for at? And then allow this power of life to give you the answer.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it takes work, right? Like all these things, I'm very big on harping the point that all this stuff we talk about does take reps.
Yeah.
This won't happen like immediately.
That's that contention. That's that wrestling.
Yeah.
Because to me, contention is a wrestling. You know, and wrestling is active. It's weight against weight. It's me trying to outmaneuver you, but the you is you. Like in that sense, you're asking
wrestling with yourself.
Yes, you're wrestling with yourself and your higher self, capital S. And I love that exercise. And like I told you, my breakthrough came. I do it in a different way for me, and I'll try that next time. But when I was struggling, I just took a walk and I basically interrogated myself. And I was like, "Who are you?
Yeah.
What were you made for?
Yeah.
What is your nature? What do you want?" You know, I just interrogated myself. And to me, that's a contention. That's a wrestling with myself.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be this disassociation, because I think this is something that Nietzsche was getting at too. There's more to us. And if you've listened to our show at all, you would understand this. There's more to us than just the ego. There's more to you than just your rationalizing brain. There's also the animal you. There's the more natural you. You know, there's all these affective drives. So you gotta contend with those. You gotta wrestle with those.
Yeah.
And figure out what they want and how we could subsume this into a greater unity. Yeah. And I think that's definitely internal contention. That's the internal agon. You have a tournament. You have a tournament of wills inside you, and they're all battling. There is a Iliad inside you. There is an agon, a war taking place. And what are you going to do? You're just going to, you're like a Benedict Arnold. You go from one side to the next. You know, it's like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. It's like, let's fight for some peace and unity internally. I think that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, guide your choices.
Yeah,
that'll guide your choices.
The agon.
The agon.
Compete.
I said this to my 11-year-old. Kind of got on her a little bit, and you know, I think as a parent, that's okay.
Good.
To demand the best that you want from your children.
Yeah.
And I shared this story for the simple reason of she was listening, and I can tell when my 11-year-old gets really into that state where she's contemplating life in general. And I said to her, "Chloe, you got to understand, you're not Chloe Perez. There's so much more to you than you think. Chloe Perez is just what you've been told to be. That is your identity that this world has given you, which forms that ego, that sense of separation from all things." I said, "Chloe, so much more to you than you think. You are not just Chloe Perez, okay?" "Okay, Dad." She's probably thinking, what the hell is he talking about, man? But I say it. I've been saying it since she was both my kids, and since they could, I just said it. Just spoke to them like I thought they needed to be spoken to.
That's good.
And really implanted some of those ideas of how to live like a good human being from a very early stage. And they saw me make tons of mistakes, and they probably learned from that too.
Yeah, they do. And
they saw me continually try to strive back into the contention of life, crawling back into it. But in the end, I'm happy I did it, bro, because now that I take an attachment-based approach to therapy, I know the influence parents have on children.
Yeah.
From a scientific perspective of a theory that works very well, is what type of relationship did you have with your significant or surrogate caregiver?
Yep.
And that could be a point of contention for you, because that will explain a lot of why you have the types of relationships you have.
Yeah. And to piggyback that, something that's helped me is looking at who my parents are individually, their wills and desires and character, and how what of that I've picked up. And that's helped me in my self-understanding.
Absolutely.
So I've been able to look like that. Yeah, that comes back to that relationship with them. I mean, you may not have the greatest outward relationship, but there's also this internal genetic relationship where I've got to reconcile that, and I've got to contend with that. Yeah. And maybe there's things in me that I don't like because I inherited those from my parents, but we gotta contend with that.
There you go, man.
We gotta contend
Very
with that.
well
what are you
said.
gonna do with that? What are you gonna, you need to know that.
Very well said. Social reality, a lot of people describe it like this. This is ontological design. The environment designs you as you design the environment.
Yes.
So you got to understand, like, we get wired from experience.
Yeah.
That's why I had this new idea of practical training, practice, patience. Now, what does that mean? Practical training is experience of life. Go out there and engage with it. Practical training. Then practice what you learn and be patient because your time will come.
Mm-hmm. It's good. Love it.
Yeah, man.
It's a good
67.
way to end, bro.
Yeah, dude. That was
67.
awesome. Cool. Play that stuff again and let's tell ourselves a story.
The dithyramb.
The dithyramb.
dithyramb. The dithyramb.
The dithyramb.
Ancient Greek.
I don't have to call it. I got a new concept. I don't got to call it play that stuff anymore. The dithyramb. Hey, episode 67. A lot of Heraclitus. A lot of striving for excellence. A lot of contention. A lot of understanding that there is an external world that we are experiencing, but there is also an inner world that is subjective, and we can choose one of those two. The real question and the real contention comes from which one are you going to choose to pay attention to? The inner subjective experience or the outer objective experience?
Either way, you've been called into the agon, the Colosseum, and you have to compete.
Bring them forth. Let's go, man. I'm going in. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Share it, man. Just share with people you think it'll bring them value. Love you guys. Thank you for hanging out.